Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. Guys, we're going to be talking about the HYDRA today. The best champions, in my opinion, for HYDRA to help you get your way through this beast of a boss. And honestly, the hardest thing with HYDRA is you just need so many different mechanics in your team. And that's why we tend to see HYDRA teams kind of stacked out with more legendary champions. You need to bring damage, and normally it's in the form of a burn or it's enemy max HP champions. You need to bring some form of provoke, ideally for the head of decay. You need to bring block buff so that you're not getting a load of buffs thrown to the opposite team. Or you need to bring a kind of buff steel tank who's going to be a really kind of solid tank that's always going to be able to deal with the buff steel. You need to be able to bring decreased attack for Head of Wrath, decreased defense to allow yourself to get some damage away. You need buffs for your teams like increased speed. You need to throw decreased speed on the HYDRA head. It's like, whoa, it's overwhelming the amount of different skills that you actually need to bring. And that's why legendaries tend to come into the mix a lot more, because their kits tend to have a lot more of these abilities kind of connected. You know, 2 or 3 of those things at once, which becomes really useful. I'm going to try and mix in some epics into this group as well, but there would be a fair few legendaries in the mix here. Let's go. Okay then, let's start off with damage dealers. There's 3 ways to do damage really against HYDRA. You either bring in enemy max HP nukers, you bring in straight damage dealers, or you bring in burns. Burns are probably easier for lower level accounts moving up towards mid to late game. Super late game accounts can probably bring in the nukes just because their gear is going to be that much better and more worthwhile. So let's talk about the burners first. And I'll start with an epic here. I'm going to start with Geo. Now, Geo is always enraged. Yeah, the thing with Geo is he can put out a burn on one HYDRA head, and every time anyone on your team takes damage from that HYDRA head, he gets a chance to kick in his passive, where he's basically doing a 3% enemy max HP hit. It's like doing a kind of War Master hit chance per hit on your team. So if you can imagine, if you can get this A3 on multiple heads, all of a sudden you are doing a lot of damage whilst you're taking damage. It's a really good mechanic. It's going to be one of the best epics in the game to get damage out on the HYDRA. It's why people run him in a reflex set. They don't even use the A2. They just try and get cooldowns on the A3 as much as possible, so they can try and place burns on as many heads as possible. The other cool thing here about the A3 is you can actually do it against a weak affinity. You can do it against a head that's got Poison Cloud on it. You can do it basically at any point unless they've got block debuffs out there, and he'll still be able to land it. So this is a really cool skill to be able to kind of just throw in there and get a lot of damage away for your team. Okay, another burn champion, and I'll make this one a pretty damn accessible one. Drex. I wouldn't say he's actually up there as the best champion in the game for this, but for a freebie, he's got a really cool passive, which kind of does the same thing that I was just saying there about Geo. When you take a hit, you've got a chance to place burns on your enemies. So obviously the HYDRA hits you. Even if the HYDRA's got Poison Cloud on it, if the HYDRA has got a load of kind of buffs up, it doesn't matter. As long as it's not block debuffs again, there's this chance that HP burn will go on there. Weak hits doesn't happen with this. So he's actually good as just like a straight up unit to stand there and take a hit. And he also brings a provoke, which is one of the other big skills you want, which will, on a 3-turn cooldown, be able to deal with the head of decay for you, which is also pretty damn good. Okay, then let's go through a couple of... let's go into a Skim Walker here. Yeah, so Tumisia, really good burn champion as well. Basically got the ability to do an AoE burn here for 3 turns on the A3. Can go through weak... Doesn't weak hit again. This is not a non-weak hit. It's a void legendary, so you don't get any of that silliness going on. There's also a chance to place decreased speed as well, if the target's got low turn meter, which is really strong. Like, decreased speed is a really strong debuff, and she'll also bring a nuke on the A3. So Tumisia is a really valuable champion if you're lucky enough to get one. There's a couple of other legendaries in this group as well. Venus and Cupidous both bring really steady AoE HP burns now. Cupidous does it alongside a lot of damage, and Venus does it alongside a lot of support type of debuffs like decreased defense, weaken, enabling you to do just straight up harder hits. If you put the two of them together, Cupidous goes a bit crazy because of his passive. and will always a counter-attack when hit. And the counter-attack is a smack of an AoE A1. So these two have become crazy since they were buffed. So a couple of other kind of burners that's worth looking at just because they're easier to obtain. Akoff here can be got from Doom Tower. Really good burner, effective champion. And Mordecai here from the Sacred Order. Again, has got the ability to place HP burns. Again, so it means it will go through Poison Cloud. It will go through, you can't weak hit or anything like that. So it's a really effective way of putting the burns out there. The last one, and unfortunately this is not a champion that everyone can get, but worth calling out anyway. Ninja is freaking crazy with his A2. Does a triple hit. Each time got a chance to place the burn and instantly activate it, just causing a ton of damage. So in very end game, top level teams, you will see Ninja as a big damage dealer. So if we're not doing burns, and there's more, by the way, there are more champions. Pretty much anyone that's doing an AoE HP burn can be used in that role. But they're some of the ones that I think are the best because they bring other things. If you're just going to hit and do damage, then enemy max HP is next best in line. And with this, we've got some of the kind of normal callouts really. Royal Guard. It depends what affinity head you're up against in terms of which ones of these you'll bring. But Royal Guard is kind of like a best in class with his enemy max HP AoE hit on the A2. But then you've also got decreased speed and can't do turn meter here, but decreased speed and drop defense as two other abilities as well. So that actually comes in as really nice for HYDRA, especially the A3 here with a chance to drop some speed. So Royal Guard's probably like best in class. And quite closely behind really is going to be our boy the Husk. So Husk, you would actually just turn off his A3 completely and you would go enemy max HP nuke on the A2. Probably put him in something nice like a reflex set. But his A1 does have a chance to provoke as well. So can be kind of like a secondary effort to try and keep the head of the K at bay. So those two are probably best in class. If you're not doing enemy max HP and you're just looking to straight hit, then we've got old Madame Trunder. Yeah, Trunder is probably best in class here. You do want to get things like drop defense out, weaken out before she goes. You do really want to get increased attack on her before she goes. But either way, she will be an absolute slam on this A3. And if heads are dead, if you hit a dead head and there's other dead heads as well with this A2, the damage is actually like astronomical. But she does need to be geared well to start to do some of those big numbers. So a couple more that fall into that kind of direct damage role. This is one that I've been using recently, and I've got to say, really want to pair him with someone who's got Hex. So best in class for sure to pair alongside him is Mithrala. We'll talk about her in a while. And obviously you get her from HYDRA, so you won't have her straight away. But Ruel the Huntsman, a lot of people have him from a previous fusion. He does a ton of damage. He really, really does a crazy amount of damage. And it's just straight hits. Yeah, he does bring some buff to your team. Perfect Veil to himself and increased accuracy to your team. But otherwise, he's basically just bringing the nukes. And yeah, he really does hit hard. So you don't want to bring protectors in to keep him alive. But he's a really, really solid champ. And the other one I call out here is Michold. So Michold, again, brings an absolute cannon, actually, of an A3 single target. Also the chance to steal buffs away from a target. He brings increase speed to you and leech. So leech enables you to heal when you're doing hits. The increased speed is obviously keeping you moving fast. But then he also brings this A1. And the A1 is where his damage really comes from, because he'll hit an enemy and then he'll hit again enemies that have got a leech on. The cool thing about this is every single one of those hits, even when it hits multiple at the same time, it counts all as single target hits. So all of those resistances that HYDRA's got against AoE damage doesn't matter with Michold's A1. So it's like he's doing a whole bunch of single target whacks, which will do a lot of damage if he's built well. So the last legendary I'm going to call out here for damage, he doesn't really fit into any of those camps like directly. But Theodore, the Savant, is kind of crazy with his ability to activate burns. And I guess actually I need to call out Sakir as well. But basically anyone who's placed burns out there or poisons, he does an instant activate to pop a ton of damage. It really does pick the damage up. He's also got an AoE decreased speed, so those two things together make him really, really solid for HYDRA, and he does do an AoE increased speed for your team and drop some poison out there on an AoE as well. Yeah, in the same light, I should call out Sakia, who has got an AoE HP burn, but then gets an extra turn if it goes everywhere. Now, there's a reasonable chance this will not go everywhere because of affinity, but if it does, she'll get an extra turn and she'll pop straight into this A2, which is a drop defense and weaken, and then an activate burn as well. So you can do a lot of damage with a Sakia on your team just by activating those burns super quick. But yeah, she is also a really good damage dealer. So I think that's kind of covered the best in class for damage. Let's move on to some provoked champions. I'm only going to call out a couple that are consistent and I think fit the team. There's a few which are really consistent, but I just don't feel like they've got a place in the game. You know, an example is War Chief. War Chief will provoke all day long. Doesn't really do anything else that's going to help you with the rest of HYDRA, with all those other jobs that you need to do. So a few of the best in class ones here. And again, we're looking for a provoke just to kind of deal with that Head of Decay. Head of Decay cleaning all your buffs off is really annoying. So Bevold, I think, is one of the best. Yeah, his kit, he's got a decent chance to land a provoke on the A1. He's got basically 100% if you book him out chance on the A2. Also bringing Leech. Also becoming, if you want him to be, your tank for the buff steal from the Head of Mischief. So because he just puts a strength on himself, he has one more buff than everyone else in your team. Head of Mischief will always go for the champion with the most buffs. Anyone that you can get that fills multiple roles, that's what you're looking for. So we've got Provoke, we've got Leech, which will enable you to heal. We've got Buff Tank, and then we've also got Shields for your and healing for your team. So he's kind of doing a ton of jobs here. And he's got an okay passive as well in terms of a little bit of less damage from the Head of Decay. But yeah, ultimately, this guy come in and do a ton of work for your team. Another one who does a couple of jobs. This is an epic. Umbral Enchantress. So Umbral has got block buffs. That's a massive debuff to land. Basically means that it's a kind of different way of trying to tank the buff steal. You put block buffs out there, or a different way to try and deal with Poison Cloud. Put block buffs out there. Poison Cloud won't go out. Buff steal, it will steal the buffs away, but it won't take them and then spread them. So this becomes a massive, massive debuff to have on. And then she also brings a 2-turn provoke whilst making herself unkillable. Trouble with this, it's on a 5-turn and it only goes out for 2 turns. So although this helps you, it's a short-term fix, but it is still good to have on your team. And she is a really good kind of provoke champion to have around. Another one I wanted to kind of call out in terms of an epic was Jute. The Jute the Pierced brings a nice A2 with decreased attack and defense. So these two steals are both really useful to have. Also brings that provoke on the A3. And then a decreased accuracy A1, which is not bad. But that provoke, again, just gives you a chance to deal with that Head of Decay as best as you can. Now, I think my favourite champion to fill this role is actually Kantra. And for this pure reason on my account, I've leveled a second Kantra out for 2 different runs. And she is just so damn good at keeping that Head of Decay under wraps, whilst also bringing a ton of other useful debuffs. Basically, if you can get 5 or more debuffs out there at the start of a turn, she's got a 75% chance of always refreshing a provoke. You're just keeping it going. She's also bringing some healing and some kind of less damage when debuffs are out there. It's really, she can't weak hit. She's got a load of good stuff going on. Her A2 hits 3 times and will put a mixture of really useful debuffs out there. Block buffs, decrease attack, decrease speed, weaken, decrease accuracy. All of those are actually really useful. Obviously, you can't choose which one's going to land where. It's on a 3-turn cooldown. And this is a great ability. It's a bit RNG, which is not ideal. But when you factor in that she's also going to be doing this provoke for you, and it's got a decent kind of amount of damage going on as well, easy to keep alive, this A2 becomes useful when you're kind of factoring in the provoke. And for me, I think she's one of the best in class. I guess the absolute top-notch kind of dude for this in terms of what he also brings alongside it. And Chris could kind of fall into loads of groups here in terms of the quality of his kit. But yeah, he does bring a provoke on the A3 on a 3-turn. At the same time, he's going to be your, or potentially could be your buff steel tank, because he puts additional buffs on himself that he doesn't put on others. With his A2 here, he puts like these additional heals on himself. He also extends your own buffs. He also has got a decreased speed. He's got the provoked. It's just kind of like, damn, he's bringing it all. And when he does take a hit, he's also throwing out a decreased attack and defense for the next hit that you would have got. So yeah, Chris is just kind of like insane for Hydra. So look, we need to talk about the Head of Torment here. Some people actually just ignore the Head of Torment. Okay, they don't bring a champion in to deal with it. They basically don't target it, or they just kind of ride their luck with the chance to get the 50-50 True Fear. I don't like to do that. I prefer to deal with it. And there's a few champions which just deal with it well. Twisted Shamal, straight up, it's just his passive. If anyone gets Fear or True Fear, then they're basically going to do a turn meter fill instead, and it just gets instantly removed. Head of Torment becomes irrelevant and like a non-event. And actually the passive is broken, that it doesn't end up being just the allies turn meter that fills. It's always your leader. You can actually put a leader in, like a Geo, and cycle through their abilities really damn fast. So Inquisitor Shamal is awesome for it. It also hits pretty hard, or you can put him in Toxic Gear or whatever. But pretty, he's top drawer. Duchess, top drawer as well. She's generally a top drawer champion, but the Perfect Veil here deals with the Head of Torment pretty well. It's on a 4-turn cooldown. It only goes out for 2 turns. So you still have to deal with the Head of Torment in between. But the extra block debuffs and other buffs, and then a revive as well, just makes her kind of insanely good. We've got a couple of others which are good but not as good. So Tatora, a lot of people have. Also brings Perfect Veil for the team. Also brings block debuffs and a ton of other good buffs. Actually does a lot of damage as well and puts a shield on himself. Like, this dude is the real deal in terms of Hydra. It's a really good champion for it. Will definitely help you kind of get through. And then the other kind of common one that is used to try and deal with the Head of Torment is Rector Draft, who also brings this kind of Perfect Veil on a revive, and then like a team-wide heal and Perfect Veil ability. So Head of Torment, you either choose to deal with it or not, but if you do, it's going to use up one of your slots. One of your 6 is going to be filled up by one of those champions. And honestly, it's tough. Like, you've only got 6 spaces, and there's a lot of things we're trying to cover with these champions. The cool thing I'd call out actually on Rector Draft is she does have a decreased attack single target A1. So that can be quite clutch against, like the Head of Wrath. Just singling A1, drop the decreased attack on there so you're not taking a load of damage. Same with Head of Torment, who also hits hard. Just throwing out the decreased attacks, actually really useful. She's also got a nice passive heal as well. So yeah, she turns out to be really solid in role. Okay, I'm going to call out one champion. It's actually the reward from Hydra. So it's not like everyone's going to have her straight away. But Mithrala as a Hex champion is insanely good. As I say, pair her with Ruel and you get lots of damage. But even just bringing her in for the rest of her kit is really, really strong. So you can make her... So basically, she gives you strengthen and shields, which is nice. She gives poison on her A1. It's not bad. Nice buffs on her A2 in that Hex. And then also she's got this kind of inbuilt mechanic to be able to just resist kind of anything, really. She's very easy to make resist all the stuff. So yeah, she is good, but as a kind of support unit, she's actually very good with this kind of A3 ability. And yeah, you pair her with a damage dealer like a Thea or a Ruel, and you'll get a ton of damage out of your Hex champions as well. So let's move on to champions that do block buffs. Now, there's a fair few in the game. We want champions that do block buffs, but also bring something else. So we talked about Umbral already. She's a good kind of champion for this. Ugo is also like probably best in class for this ability. She's bringing the block buffs on the A2 on a 3-turn. She also brings decreased defense on the same ability. She brings you a heal throughout the game on her A3. Yeah, and also has got like a kind of semi-cleanse going on. And if everyone else is dead, she'll pick them up. That's very hit or miss whether you can make that happen. But obviously you build her as a tanky unit that's quite fast. She's also bringing a leech on her A1. Yeah, she's just generally like a solid champion. So block buff champion here in Ugo. Now we can't really ignore the fact that probably everyone watching this video, Nyan, has got Deliana. And Deliana actually brings an AoE block buff ability on her A3. She also brings decreased resistance here and a leech. So all of those skills are great for HYDRA. She'll come in and just do a bunch of work for you on HYDRA. And yeah, it's quite easy to build. She'll also bring a strengthen when you get hit low. So if the head of Wrath explodes a hit against your team, if she's in the front of your team, like a leader or second position, she's hit before everyone else. And actually she'll spread a strengthen before they actually take the full weight of the damage. So you'll find that you'll keep people alive that probably should have died with this skill here. It's pretty cool. So the last group I want to talk about is basically like the supporting cast. Either people that enable your damage or people that will revive you and keep you going. The first one I'm going to shout out in this area is Cardi L. Just a straight up insane HYDRA champion. Brings this kind of revive on death. So it's not quite an instant revive, but it's setting you up to be revived when you know you're going down. Sometimes running revive on death and playing people with slightly less tanky builds can be quite cool, because champions that are being selected to be eaten, if they get killed, actually it kind of removes that debuff from your team and it will reset somewhere else. So people going down is not the worst thing in the world, providing you can kind of keep them up and keep them moving when they get back going. So revive on death here is cool. Also, this massive ally attack ability with great buffs as well. Just Cardi L is just straight up an awesome legendary. Now, we've got an epic in the same faction in Godseeker. Mainly, got a similar type of thing in terms of picking someone up, revive on death, but it's a single ally. But the cool thing is with this, so we get the instant revive on death if someone's going to die. Can book down to 4 turns. We also get healing increase for your team. She also will bring this kind of AoE hit with a heal and an increase your buffs, decrease enemy buffs ability, which is cool. And she's also got a heal with a revive. So revive, heal, and turn meter boost, and resets the cooldown of all of those skills on the revive champion. So Godseeker comes in as a really good reviver stroke healer. I guess we should call out Asala as an epic as well. Really good revive all team ability with strength and an increased defense. Also brings decreased attack AoE hits, and all of the HYDRA heads do damage based on attack. So this is great. Got an okay A1. Oh, this is a kind of irrelevant passive, but yeah, basically in there for the revive and the AoE drop attack ability. Who else have I got on my list here? Oh yeah. Tahanarak. What a champion this is for HYDRA. I mean, just bringing a ton of stuff that's almost purely HYDRA related. So decreased speed A1 with some heals. We've got an AoE decreased attack and that block buff ability. So 2 really solid abilities in one on the A2. So this is a single target, but it will actually do a debuff spread. Kind of want her to go before others in your team so that she is spreading this block buffs. Or I guess you try and run a Hex champion and make sure that the Head of Mischief is targetable with this. Up to you really, but block buffs going out on the Head of Mischief would be useful. And then she's also bringing increased speed for your team, and she brings kind of like a self-cleanse thing going, or a team cleansing going on as you go. So Tahanarak is damn good as a kind of supporting unit. I guess you could call out Scylla the Drakes as well. Certainly not a top HYDRA champion, but not a bad one either. So she brings a decreased speed, which you can target. So as an A1 hit. She brings a revive with Ally Protect. And then just this passive heal is probably the best thing about her kit, honestly. Just constantly doing passive healing whenever she gets a turn. Also got one of the new legendary champions. One of the new Skim Walkers who I do not have yet. Necmo. I mean, some people are calling him out as the best HYDRA champion in the game. And I've certainly seen some wacky scores against Nightmare HYDRA, like over 100 million, with this dude forming part of that team. So he's got an AoE decrease attack A1. It's actually a crazy percentage to land it for an AoE hit. He's got a decreased speed and leech A2. Again, like debuff king here for HYDRA. And then he's doing an increased speed and turn meter fill A3. And yet another turn after it, which means he'll cycle back to it really quick. Yeah, just like a bonkers Hydra champion, honestly. Maybe he is the best Hydra champion. Chris might have a few words to say about that, but he's got to be up there. We've also got, and probably not as effective in Hydra as he is in other areas, but you can't really write off Vodoff as a great tank and healer. So, you know, Vodoff heals based on damage taken. So it's almost like as soon as you take a hit, the heal goes out, take a hit, the heal goes out. So he's able to kind of keep your team topping off health without really trying. He's also got the ability to place the provoke on the Head of Decay. So, you know, it's just a solid heal plus extra little bit of utility to keep your team alive and moving. And then the one which I think doesn't really get any love, but I actually think is pretty damn insane for this fight. So Blind Seer, in terms of a revive, is one of the best revives in the game. So revive and put block damage on that team. Gives you a chance to get round to healing everyone back up to full with another champion. We've also got here a block debuffs for your team and shield. And the shield is equal to her HP, 30%. Pretty good. And she's got a kind of decreased turn meter A1, which won't affect anything. But crazy base speed. She's very easy to build. And yeah, as a supporting unit, actually really good. So we're going to call out 2 more support units then to finish this off. We've got Brockney. I mean, he's damn well like one of the best legendaries in the game anyway. Does bring you a burn A1. Does bring you this kind of shield enhancing A2 with a chance to kind of clean a layer of buffs off of enemies. And then it gives you the shield and block debuffs A3 as well. His passive actually enables you to heal when you're taking damage through the shield. And it's also worth saying that this shield is irremovable. So anyone who's trying to steal your buffs cannot steal the shield away, which means you're not going to lose that kind of protection against the Hydra, which is really nice to have. So yeah, Brockney's a really good support unit. And then the last one I'm going to call out is actually Lady Kimmy, who just brings a ton of stuff to this fight. So basically bringing decreased accuracy and speed against the Hydra, giving you increased accuracy and speed. She also brings a block buffs if she removes some buffs. It's a little bit hit or miss on this one, but it's not bad. And then there's some turn meter gain to be had as well. So yeah, Lady Kimmy also damn good. So as I said at the start, it's way more legendary focused than any other content I would normally do videos on. But I want to be real with you. These are the champions that get the job done. And if I've not called out champions that you own, I guess think about the skills that I'm talking about for you to try and get away. Because they're the skills that are going to enable you to deal with the Hydra heads as the rotations start to come through. There you go, guys. I've been Hell Hades. That's the Hydra. I'll see you later.